depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice the Radio. So today I want to start a new series. For a while now on this channel, I've been doing a series which is one of my favourite series I do, which is Pokemon cards that are so good, they will never be printed again. Well, what I want to start doing today is Pokemon cards that everybody loves so much, nobody will be mad if they come back. I might need to find a snappier title. I'll work on that. And I want to start off with a card that I don't think a single person would be upset about a reprint, and that is Ditto Prism Star. Although, before we get rolling here, I do need to give a little bit of a shout out here to Kevin Clemente, who I've had this video planned for a little while, planning to upload it during EUIC, because I have to make some videos in advance because of the whole casting and not having time to make videos as many as I'd like anyway, while I'm out there. And, yeah, they actually tweeted, is there a more universally beloved card in the history of the Pokemon TCG? And that's a weird kind of coincidence, but I did see that tweet, so a bit of love there to Kevin for showing love to Ditto. I love Ditto. This is a phenomenal card. So why is it so good? And why do I think literally nobody would have an issue with this card being reprinted? Well, it's a Prism Star, which means you can only have one in your deck. Prism Stars were cool. They were very much like Ace Specs, except they could include Pokemon. And Ditto was one of them. And in my eyes, at least, Ditto was just the best. Ditto Prism Star was amazing. You could only have one in your deck, and Prism Stars, very much like Ace Specs were, you could only have one of them in your deck. Although, it must be pointed out that they also went to the Lost Zone when they got, when they left the board, they'd go to Lost Zone. But you could actually play more than one Prism Star in your deck. So, for instance, you'd sometimes see a Ditto, but then you'd also have a Jirachi. If you took it as a face-down prize card and your bench wasn't full, you could bench it and take an extra prize card. So each of your Prism Stars were limited to one in your deck. However, you could have more than one Prism Star in total, just no more than one of each. Now, Ditto was a fairly underwhelming basic with 40 HP and no attack, but it had the ability Almighty Evolution. Once during your turn, before you attack, you could put any Stage 1 card from your hand onto this Pokemon to evolve it. And you couldn't break the rules of evolution here. So if you hadn't had Ditto down for a turn, you couldn't evolve it. If it was your first turn in a game, you couldn't evolve it. However, it was basically just a static Stage 1. Anyone who's playing Disney Lorcana right now, Morph. Morph is a shift target that anybody can shift onto. Well, this was a basic that could evolve into any Stage 1. Very much like Morph and shifting in Lorcana. So yay! And it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. Because there were basically two ways to deal with this. Let's take a deck like Zoroark Lycanroc. Big deck back in the day. Great deck back in the day. So you would play Ditto, and then you could either evolve it into Zoroark, or you could evolve it into Lycanroc, so whichever one you needed was there. If your opponent knocked out the only Zorua, you've still got a Ditto. If they knocked out the only Rockruff, you've still got a Ditto. It served as an option to get whichever one you wanted, and you could end your turn thinking, I'm going to evolve that into a Zoroark next turn, but by the time your next turn starts, you're like, oh, actually, you know what? It's going to have to be a Lycanroc, but that was fine. That would work as well. So having it as an option to just go, you know what? I have got multiple Stage 1s in this deck. I'm just going to evolve this into whatever I need. And in that regard, it worked absolutely beautifully. Just giving you an option for, I've got multiple Stage 1s. I don't know what this is going to evolve into. But the one thing I know for absolute certain is I am going to get value out of this. I am benching it this term, and the cool thing about Ditto was it was never like sitting on your bench for long, because it was too good. You would go, well, it's on my bench for now, but actually, oh wait, no, I've already evolved it. literally already evolved it into another stage 1 because actually it's too gosh darn good. Ditto Prism Star in that regard was amazing. But it was also useful just in terms of having a 5th basic. You're not playing a bunch of different stage 1s, you're just essentially playing a single stage 1 line, but it doesn't really matter because at some point you're going to need a 5th basic, and this will work quite nicely. So one deck we had at the time was a Macargo deck, which would have Macargo. Once during a turn before you can attack, you can search your deck for a card, shuffle it, and put it on top of your deck. And then Macargo GX. Once during your turn before you attack, you can discard the top card of your deck. If it's a basic energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. Obvious synergy there, whereby you use Macargo's ability to put an energy on top of your deck, and then Macargo GX is to discard it, and you're actually just attaching it to a Pokemon. And then Lava Flow let you discard a bunch of energy and do huge damage and all of that. The thing was, there was no other stage 1 that you would play with Macargo, but you're literally playing a deck where you're trying to play Macargo and you're trying to play Macargo EX, and it actually got a little bit annoying. You desperately needed more Slugma. Well, this is a 5th Slugma. You knew it was only ever going to evolve into a Macargo or a Macargo GX. You knew it was going to be a 5th Slugma because there was no other stage 1 in the deck. But you know what? It's a deck where you were desperate for a 5th Slugma, and this worked very nicely as a 5th Slugma. There's a bunch of other decks around, like Granbull, for instance, which was very much a Granbull deck. But even Granbull, a lot of the time, would generally play... Actually, weirdly, they would play this Macargo, because Granbull, you needed a 0-card hand, so it was really useful to be able to fix your top deck before you went down to a 0-card hand. I played a lot of Granbull, loved Granbull, and yeah, I played Ditto Prism Star in Granbull because it was too gosh darned good. But the point I'm making here is that maybe you were using it because you had multiple stage 1s, and Ditto gave you the option to evolve into any of them. Maybe you were using it because you played just a single stage 1, but you wanted to have a 5th of your basic to improve your consistency. Well, this works beautifully. And the thing is, it's not one of those cards where we're going to look at it and go, well, hang on a second, this is unfair. Take Unfair Stamp. Well, Unfair Stamp is really good because you get to put your opponent down to a 2-card hand and you keep a 5-card hand after a KO, and it's really nice if you're playing a bit of a setup deck because it gives you, if your opponent goes aggressive, you can hurt them and slow them down. But then it kind of hurts aggro decks, so people are upset about this. That's not where we are with Ditto Prism Star. It is a colourless Pokemon that can evolve into any stage 1. So every single person out there can play Ditto Prism Star. Everyone can put Ditto Prism Star into their deck, and that's what makes this such a wonderful, wonderful card. It's not a controversial card that helps some decks and hurts others. Okay, fine, it doesn't help all basic decks, and there's an argument that it's not really that great in Stage 2 decks, I grant you. But I don't think anyone's going to be mad about this. Unfair Stamp absolutely infuriates people like me who love playing aggro decks. It's a super annoying card. Ditto just isn't. And if you saw this around nowadays, if you had this in the format right now, it would just help out a whole bunch of decks. I'm a guy that loves playing Stage 1 decks, like Azumarill, for instance. Love Azumarill. I think it's a phenomenal card. Well, yeah. This is going to help your consistency if you're playing Azumarill. Because you know what? It's a 5th Marill. It's wonderful. Cannot speak highly enough about it. But there's one other thing I haven't mentioned yet, and that is the teching possibilities when you're playing around with this card. Because you can now play any Stage 1 and just evolve your Ditto into that one Stage 1. And you've got to be a little bit careful, because of course you're only playing one Ditto and you can't reuse it, so kind of when it's gone, it's gone. You get one chance. But oh, it's so much fun. Play one random Dusclops. to get that extra 5 damage counters. And if you're playing Ditto anyway, your opponent, are they going to be prepared for Dusclops? I'm going to go out on a limb and say no, they're probably not prepared for Dusclops, so they're not playing around that random extra 5 damage you can drop, and there we go. Back in the day, you could play this with Garboda, for instance, either as a cheeky little item lock or as a cheeky little trash avalanche. Either will do fine. And all of a sudden, you've got options that your opponent didn't think you had. And that is what makes it so much fun for me. Use it as I'm playing multiple stage 1s. Which one am I going to drop now? Use it as just a 5th basic if you're playing a very singular stage 1 plan. Play it as an option to play random stage 1 techs. It's a great card that opens up a huge amount of possibilities, and it doesn't hurt your opponent. It doesn't restrict what they can do. It just is a card that can fit into any deck and opens up options, and I, for one, think this is absolutely wonderful. I think if this card got reprinted, everyone would be happy. Which leads me to the last question of the video, and a very important one. What other cards would you put in this category? What other cards do you think Pokemon could reprint and everybody would be cool with it? Everybody's going to look at this and go, nah, you're good, man. We like this. This is good. I think Ditto counts. What do you think counts? We're going to carry this series on, ladies and gentlemen. So give me your ideas in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Lawasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely AB3, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.